Welcome to this explainer. I'm going to be your intelligence officer today, breaking down some of the absolute most highly classified next-generation military hardware currently deployed. You know, if you're a civilian, it's pretty easy to assume that modern warfare is just a slightly upgraded version of the past, right? Like better tanks, faster standard missiles, maybe fancier rifles. But the reality? The baseline has completely shifted. Today we're looking at systems designed not just to fight, but to absolutely dominate the battlefield. We're talking physics-defying speed, absolute silence, and literal invisible energy.
So let's dive right into this intelligence briefing. We're going to cover 5 main operational theaters today. First up, strategic aerial supremacy. Then, advanced ground combat systems. Third, the silent undersea fleet. Fourth, directed energy in unconventional warfare. And finally, emerging global threats.
Section 1. Strategic Aerial Supremacy. Dominating the skies. You know, for decades, air superiority was all about dogfights. But today, it's all about seeing absolutely everything without ever being seen yourself.
There is this massive and frankly fascinating tactical contrast between the undetectable surgical strike capability of the B-2 bomber and the constant hovering presence of the MQ-9 Reaper drone. As an analyst looking at this hardware, the B-2 is essentially a ghost. It uses a flying wing design coated with radar-absorbing materials. What that means is you have this massive aircraft carrying 23 tons of destructive power, and yes, that includes B-83 thermonuclear bombs, yet it shows up on an enemy radar as something smaller than a seagull. No joke. On the totally other end of the spectrum, the MQ-9 Reaper drone, it doesn't even need to hide. It just outlasts you. Cruising way up at a 52,000-foot operational ceiling, it can just loiter in the sky for 36 hours straight. It carries a 3,000-pound payload and acts as this relentless, unblinking eye. I mean, we're talking about optics that can read a license plate from over 2 miles away.
Now, this brilliantly illustrates exactly why hypersonics are so terrifying. Unlike standard missiles that follow really predictable arcs, the ARW maneuvers like a running back dodging tackles, but doing it at over 12,000 kilometers per hour. Think about it. Standard ballistic missiles follow a set parabolic trajectory. Modern air defenses, like the Russian S-400, can just calculate that math and intercept them. It's basically a physics problem. But the AGM-108 ARW, it literally changes direction mid-flight at Mach 9. It crosses entire continents in just minutes, striking with raw kinetic force before those automated interception algorithms can even lock on.
6,000. That is the actual number of rounds fired per minute by the 20mm rotary cannon on the AC-130 Spectre. This is an aircraft that doesn't just fly by its target, it circles it, acting as an inescapable hovering artillery platform. So instead of a quick, traditional bombing run, the Spectre flies in this slow, deliberate circle. It points an entire arsenal of side-mounted guns directly down onto a target, and that actually includes a 105mm howitzer, the kind of heavy gun you typically find mounted on ground tanks. It just maintains continuous, devastating fire, basically pulverizing the entire zone into dust and silence.
Section 2. Advanced ground combat systems. Redefining kinetic force. Let's move down to the ground theater and see how we're transitioning from traditional gunpowder to pure, unstoppable kinetic energy and smart munitions. Check out this massive jump in speed. Moving at over 7,800 kilometers per hour, a projectile roughly the size of a wine bottle hits with such devastating kinetic impact that chemical explosives become completely obsolete. The Navy's electromagnetic railgun doesn't even need traditional warheads. It uses pure electricity to launch a solid projectile that rips right through naval-grade steel using raw kinetic force alone. The brilliant part? This makes it incredibly safe for the ship carrying it because there are no explosive magazines to worry about detonating accidentally while still remaining unspeakably lethal to a target 200 kilometers away. These systems give ground forces unprecedented leverage. We're talking about a HIMARS truck being able to perform a sniper-like strike on a bunker over 300 kilometers away, and then just vanish before the enemy can even track its launch trajectory. In Ukraine, we've actually seen HIMARS fire and reposition in under 2 minutes, completely dodging counterattacks. But zooming in on the individual infantry level, the tech is just as wild. Take the XM-25 grenade launcher. It actually measures the distance to a target, and the grenade itself counts its own spirals as it flies through the air, detonating precisely behind a barrier to take out hidden combatants. There's literally nowhere to hide. Meanwhile, you have the AA-12 shotgun, which reduces recoil by 90%. That allows a soldier to fire 5 fragmentation shells per second, one-handed. It's a massive, massive leap from standard infantry gear. Section 3. The silent undersea fleet. Acoustic invisibility.
Plunging beneath the surface, survival in this domain now means being quieter than the ocean itself. Down here, sound is literally death.
Decades of Cold War paranoia and some truly tragic accidents forced engineers to completely reinvent submarine architecture. Back in the 1960s, the tragic implosions of the USS Thresher and the Scorpion proved that even minor mechanical failures, or tiny noises, were absolutely fatal. That sheer terror drove a total top-down redesigned warship. By the 1990s, the Navy designed the Virginia-class using 3D digital modeling, making it the first paperless warship ever built. Every single pipe, every wire was mapped out digitally just to eliminate any possible flaws and vibrations. And that evolution directly birthed the incredible 7,800-ton Block 5 Virginia-class we see deployed today. Looking ahead, we're talking about the Columbia-class, projected to have a 40-year operational lifespan without ever even needing to refuel.
The Virginia Block 5 utilizes internal suspension mounts and pump jet propulsion to become essentially invisible to sonar, while the Virginia payload module triples its firepower. Look, traditional submarines use open propellers, right? And those create this distinct whine that enemy sonar can easily detect. But the Block 5 uses an enclosed shroud. And get this, literally every piece of machinery inside rests on sound-absorbing suspension mounts. The computers and cooling pumps are actually tuned to specific frequencies, so they blend perfectly with the natural background ambient noise of the sea. It is quite literally an acoustic ghost, but an acoustic ghost carrying 28 additional Tomahawk cruise missiles.
But this technological marvel comes at a really steep human cost. Crews have to endure extreme psychological isolation, something known as the slow compression, just to maintain that absolute secrecy. As an analyst, you can't just look at the hardware. You really have to look at the operators. Imagine up to 120 sailors sealed in a metal tube under the crushing weight of the ocean, living under red lights with no sunlight for 90 days or more. The sheer paranoia of knowing that dropping a single wrench could expose their position leads to intense sensory distortion and severe fatigue. It's a grueling environment that pushes the human mind to its absolute limits.
Section 4. Directed Energy and Unconventional Warfare. The Invisible Battlefield. Now we enter the mind-bending reality where bullets are replaced by invisible waves and lasers. This is where military hardware stops looking like traditional weaponry and really starts sounding like science fiction.
To understand some of the recent tactical reports coming out, we first have to define the Frey effect. Essentially, this is a high-power microwave acting directly on the inner ear, totally bypassing the eardrums to cause instant vertigo and incapacitation. So instead of firing sound waves, this technology fires a highly focused beam of pulsed microwave energy. The water inside human brain tissue absorbs it, which creates this minuscule rapid heating effect. That sudden expansion generates a pressure wave right inside the skull. The target suddenly hears buzzing or roaring, they lose their balance completely, and they can even suffer internal hemorrhaging, all without a single bullet ever being fired.
This deconstruction of a reported extraction raid acts as a literal masterclass in modern combined arms tactics. It shows exactly how to neutralize a massive force without ever starting a traditional gun battle. According to analyzed reports detailing an operation in Venezuela, this is how a modern soft-kill extraction functions. First, electronic warfare blinded the defending S-300 radar networks entirely. Then, a massive drone swarm flooded the airspace to cause absolute confusion. Finally, those microwave devices we just talked about incapacitated hundreds of defending guards simultaneously, leaving them dizzy, sick, and completely paralyzed by vertigo. All of this allowed a small Tier 1 Delta Force team to breach a highly fortified compound virtually unopposed. It is a perfect, textbook example of a force multiplier.
These directed energy systems scale dramatically, from detonating roadside bombs with invisible lasers to crowd control arrays that are so intensely uncomfortable they force an immediate retreat. Take the active denial system, widely known as the goodbye weapon. It fires a stream of electromagnetic waves that are instantly absorbed by just the very top layer of your skin. The pain is incredibly intense, forcing targets to run away immediately, yet it is entirely non-lethal. On a slightly smaller scale, the Laser Avenger cuts right through artillery shells using an invisible beam that's 20 times hotter than a stovetop, safely detonating IEDs from a safe distance. And then you have the Pazer rifle, which uses a handheld green laser array to temporarily disorient and blind targets. We are definitely moving away from kinetic impact and straight toward pure energy manipulation.
Section 5. Emerging Global Threats. Space and the AI Horizon. Finally, we need to analyze the emerging frontiers of warfare that stretch way up into Earth's orbit and deep into autonomous computer networks. The United States isn't developing these systems in a vacuum.
They are responding directly to highly sophisticated asymmetric threats from other global powers.
The X-37B spacecraft operates as a silent assassin from the sky. It shifts the battlefield straight into space, with the potential for orbital strikes or satellite sabotage that lack any heat or noise signature whatsoever. Roughly the size of a school bus, this highly classified autonomous robotic vehicle operates over 400 kilometers above our heads in low Earth orbit. It can change its orbit, hide its position, and just linger up there for years at a time. Analysts strongly suggest it's testing microscale destruction systems or even anti-missile lasers. It represents the absolute ultimate high ground, operating completely out of reach of conventional ground defenses.
The strategic balance of global power is constantly being tested, especially as adversarial nations attempt to procure hypersonic, zigzagging carrier-killer missiles specifically designed to pierce the layered defenses of American armadas. You know, an aircraft carrier is basically a floating city that projects immense global power. But competing nations, they aren't trying to build better carriers, they're building asymmetrical weapons specifically designed to sink ours. The Chinese CM-3002, for example, flies at Mach 4 and uses really erratic zigzagging maneuvers engineered entirely to confuse the advanced radar shields of US ships. It forces military planners to constantly upgrade their defensive networks because, frankly, a single successful breach would be absolutely catastrophic.
As we look toward the SSNX program and the rapidly approaching integration of artificial intelligence into the actual kill chain, we really have to ask ourselves, what are the consequences of removing human conscience from the ultimate weapons of war? What happens when an autonomous submarine powered by AI makes the decision to strike without human approval? The SSNX is being designed to coordinate swarms of unmanned drones and process complex combat scenarios vastly faster than any human crew ever could. But early defense research simulations have already shown software independently planning automatic attack responses. We've engineered hardware that dominates the skies, shatters the sound barrier, and hides perfectly in the ocean's depths. But if we hand the keys to an artificial intelligence that lacks a moral compass, have we built the ultimate defense, or have we engineered our own obsolescence? Think about that. Until next time.